Hello. In this video you'll find the long and detailed summary of George Orwell's timeless dystopian classic 1984. In this dark world ruled by Big Brother, we'll explore themes of individual freedom, reality, and the terrifying concept of thought crime. Let's step into Winston Smith's story together. George Orwell's 1984 opens by taking us into a bleak, grey world where every step is watched and every thought is controlled, the superstate of Oceania. This imagined society is the ultimate vision of a totalitarian regime where the party dictates not only people's actions but also their thoughts. Oceania, a world of absolute control. Oceania is not just a country, it is a vast superpower. Every detail of life is monitored and controlled by the party. Freedom, individuality, and independent thought are considered the greatest crimes. Everywhere there are telescreens, devices that both broadcast propaganda and spy on citizens. People know they are constantly being watched, though they can never be sure when. This uncertainty forces them to police themselves. The most powerful symbol of the regime is Big Brother, a figure never truly seen in person, but whose image is plastered on posters all across the city. His watchful eyes seem to follow everyone, accompanied by the chilling slogan, "Big Brother is watching you." The party's ideology and structure. The party is divided into three groups. The inner party rule the true rulers, holding absolute power. The outer party rule the clerks and workers like Winston, who serve the regime obediently. The proles rule the vast majority of the population, living in poverty and ignorance. The party dismisses them as unimportant, yet fears their numbers. The party's ultimate goal is not just to rule people's actions, but to dominate their minds. For this purpose, there is the thought police, constantly watching for any sign of rebellion, even in a facial expression or a passing doubt. To question the party is to commit thought crime, distorting reality and erasing history. In Oceania, truth itself has been destroyed. The party rewrites history whenever it wishes. Newspapers, documents, and records are altered daily. Allies turn into enemies overnight, and past events are rewritten to fit the party's narrative. The most frightening power of the party is not just controlling the present, but forcing people to believe its lies as absolute truth. Reality becomes whatever the party declares it to be. Winston Smith's world. The protagonist, Winston Smith, is an ordinary member of the outer party. He lives in a decaying district of London, where life is full of poverty, hunger, and fear. His job at the Ministry of Truth is to alter old documents so that history always matches the party's version of events. Yet Winston feels a growing unease. He senses that the party is lying. Memories from his childhood don't fit with the history he is forced to rewrite. Deep inside, a seed of doubt and perhaps rebellion begins to grow. The first crack in the system, Winston secretly begins to keep a diary, even though he knows it is one of the gravest crimes in Oceania. Writing down his thoughts means stepping outside the party's control. On one page, trembling, he writes, "Down with Big Brother." This sentence marks the beginning of his silent rebellion. He is terrified, but for the first time he feels alive, because he has dared to express the truth he has been carrying inside. Life among grey walls. Winston Smith lived in London, the capital of Oceania. Around him stretched endless rows of grey apartment blocks, crumbling buildings, and towering telescreens that never stopped watching. These screens didn't just broadcast propaganda, they also spied on people, recording every move, every word, even the faintest expression. Citizens lived with the constant fear of being observed, never knowing when the party's eyes were on them. Winston's own apartment was old, damp and depressing. The stairways were dark, the walls cracked, and the city around him was drowning in poverty and shortages. Bread lines stretched endlessly, children wore ragged clothes, and yet the telescreens repeated the same message: everything is perfect, thanks to Big Brother. The people echoed this lie, though deep down, no one truly believed it. Winston's daily life. Every day, Winston went to his job at the Ministry of Truth. Ironically, his role was to rewrite history. Whenever the party changed its alliances or altered its stance, Winston had to go back to old newspapers, edit articles, and make sure the past always matched the present. If yesterday's enemy became today's ally, he erased the evidence and replaced it with a new version of reality. But Winston was disturbed. He remembered fragments of his childhood that did not match the party's official records. He knew something was wrong. Somewhere deep inside, he sensed that the truth was being destroyed. The secret diary. One of Winston's most dangerous acts was keeping a secret diary. One day, in a corner of his apartment just out of the telescreen sight, he opened a blank notebook he had secretly bought. His hands shook as he picked up a pen. Finally he wrote, "Down with Big Brother." This single sentence was the greatest crime of all, thought crime. If discovered, it would mean certain arrest and likely death. Yet Winston couldn't stop himself. Writing those words felt like letting out a scream he had been holding inside for years, the first signs of rebellion. On the outside, Winston looked like an ordinary worker, blending in with the masses, but within a quiet rebellion was growing. He pretended to believe the party's lies, yet every day he questioned them more. Why did people remain silent? Why did no one resist? Was he truly the only one who doubted? In his diary, Winston wrote, "If we don't speak the truth inside ourselves, then who are we? What does it mean to be human?" These lines revealed the depth of his inner conflict, a man torn between survival and the desperate need to live authentically. A spark of hope. Despite his fear, Winston felt a tiny spark of hope flickering inside him. Perhaps he was not alone. Perhaps others also doubted the party, waiting silently for a chance to resist. That thought gave him strength. Just like the little prince leaving his planet in search of meaning, Winston was stepping into his own inner journey. In the suffocating grey world of Oceania, he began to dream of freedom, even if only as a distant possibility. An unexpected encounter. Winston's life had been nothing but monotonous days under constant surveillance. But one day at work he noticed a young woman, Julia. She was lively, full of energy, with bright, determined eyes. At first Winston didn't trust her. He even suspected she might be a spy for the thought police, watching him closely, ready to betray him if she discovered his secret doubts about the party. Then, something unexpected happened. Julia secretly slipped him a small piece of paper. With trembling hands, Winston unfolded it. On the paper were just 3 simple words, "I love you." Those words shook Winston's entire world. For a man who had always felt alone and misunderstood, this declaration felt nothing short of miraculous, the beginning of a forbidden love. After that moment, Winston and Julia began meeting in secret. They searched for places far from the party's eyes, forests, abandoned houses, hidden corners of the city. There they could finally speak freely, share their thoughts and express their forbidden affection. Julia's hatred for the party came from a different place than Winston's. While Winston's rebellion was driven by deep philosophical questions about truth and freedom, Julia's resistance was more personal. She wanted to live, to love, to feel joy without being told what was right or wrong. She found pleasure in small acts of defiance, breaking the party's rules simply to prove she was still free inside. For Winston, Julia became a breath of fresh air in his suffocating life. With her, the fear and loneliness that haunted him seemed to fade. She reminded him that life could still hold beauty and meaning, even in the darkest times. Secret meetings and constant danger. Their love, however, was dangerous. Every meeting had to be carefully planned. They risked everything just to share a moment together. Sometimes they met in hidden corners of the countryside, sometimes in a rented room above a shabby shop. But the threat of discovery was always present. They knew that if the party ever caught them, it would not just mean imprisonment, it would mean torture, humiliation, and ultimately death. Despite this, the happiness of being together outweighed the fear, the deepening rebellion. Through Julia, Winston's quiet rebellion grew stronger. Her presence gave him courage. Their love felt like a secret fortress, a truth that the party could not control. In her arms, Winston felt for the first time that he was living, not just existing. Just as the little prince found meaning in his bond with the rose and the fox, Winston discovered in Julia the possibility of a genuine connection, something that stood against the emptiness of the party's world. Yet deep down he knew that their love, pure and real as it was, posed the greatest threat to Big Brother's rule, and for that reason it was also in constant danger. The all-seeing eye of the party. Life in Oceania was wrapped in invisible chains. Whether people were walking outside, sitting at home, or even sleeping, they could never escape the gaze of the telescreens. These devices constantly broadcasted party propaganda, while simultaneously spying on every movement, every whisper, even the slightest flicker of expression. If someone's face betrayed a hint of doubt, if their smile wasn't wide enough, or if they kept their eyes closed too long, they could be accused of committing thought crime. For the party, controlling words and actions wasn't enough. It wanted to control the very thoughts of its people. The power of language. Newspeak. One of the party's greatest weapons was Newspeak, a new, simplified language created to shrink the range of human thought. Its purpose was clear. If people no longer had the words to express rebellion, then rebellion itself could not exist. When a word disappeared, the idea behind it disappeared too. Every day at the Ministry of Truth, Winston worked to rewrite past articles and records to match the party's ever-changing version of reality. A country that was an enemy yesterday might be an ally today, and every trace of contradiction had to be erased. Whoever controlled the past controlled the future, and the party controlled everything. Doublethink. The party enforced another concept called doublethink, the ability to hold two contradictory beliefs at the same time and accept both as true. Slogans like "War is peace," "Freedom is slavery," and "Ignorance is strength" were drilled into every citizen's mind. To Winston, this was madness, but for the party, it was the ultimate tool of power, keeping people so confused that they would accept any version of reality handed to them. Winston's deepening rebellion. After writing down with Big Brother in his secret diary, Winston felt a small fire awaken inside him. The lies of the party and the way people blindly accepted them became unbearable. Though he couldn't speak openly, Winston began to dream of resistance. In his thoughts and secret writings, he created a world where truth mattered more than fear. These private moments became the seeds of a larger rebellion growing inside him. The pursuit of truth. Winston realized that the party's power came not only from controlling the present, but from destroying the past. If no one could remember what truly happened, then the party's version was the only reality left. This realization deepened Winston's inner conflict, but also gave him a purpose: to search for truth in a world built on lies. It was a dangerous mission, but it gave his life meaning, a spark of hope in the grey emptiness of Oceania. The mysterious figure, O'Brien. In the suffocating grey world of the party, Winston had begun to feel that maybe he wasn't entirely alone. His bond with Julia gave him hope, but deep inside he longed for something more, proof that there were others who questioned, who resisted, who dared to think. One man caught his attention: O'Brien. A high-ranking member of the inner party, O'Brien appeared to be a loyal servant of Big Brother. Yet Winston sensed something unusual in his gaze, as if there was a hidden truth behind his calm, intelligent eyes. Winston began to believe that O'Brien secretly shared his hatred for the party. The secret meeting. Summoning all his courage, Winston approached O'Brien and quietly said, "I want to speak with you in private." To his surprise, O'Brien responded warmly, inviting Winston to his luxurious apartment. When Winston and Julia arrived, they were stunned. Unlike the bleak rooms of outer party members, O'Brien's home was comfortable, elegant, and filled with books, objects forbidden to ordinary citizens. Just being there felt like stepping into another world, far away from the party's suffocating grip. The Brotherhood and the book. O'Brien listened carefully to Winston and Julia. He spoke of a secret organization known as the Brotherhood, a group dedicated to fighting the party and reclaiming freedom. For Winston, it felt like a dream coming true. At last, he wasn't alone. Julia, too, believed they had finally found allies. O'Brien even promised Winston a mysterious book written by Emmanuel Goldstein, the party's most wanted enemy. This book supposedly revealed the hidden truths behind the party's lies and explained how totalitarian power was maintained. Winston's hope grew stronger than ever, the shadow of betrayal. But behind O'Brien's kind smile, a darker reality was waiting. Winston and Julia did not know that O'Brien was no rebel at all. He was, in fact, one of the party's most loyal servants. His friendliness was a mask carefully designed to gain their trust. By drawing them close, O'Brien was setting a trap. The hope Winston felt, the belief that he had found true comrades, was all part of the party's plan to uncover and crush any hint of rebellion. The most dangerous enemy, O'Brien was the embodiment of doublethink, living proof of how the party could twist truth and loyalty. He represented the most dangerous kind of enemy, the one who appears as a friend, only to betray you from within. Just as the Little Prince's encounters revealed the hidden flaws of adults, Winston's meeting with O'Brien carried its own painful lesson. The deepest betrayal comes not from strangers, but from those you dare to trust. The arrest of Winston and Julia had placed their trust in O'Brien. They truly believed he was a rebel, a secret member of the Brotherhood. But it was a cruel illusion. One day, while they were meeting in the rented room above Mr. Charrington's shop, the door burst open. The thought police stormed in. In that terrifying moment, Winston realized the truth. O'Brien had deceived them. He wasn't an ally at all. He was one of Big Brother's most loyal servants. Winston wasn't just captured. He was betrayed by the very man he thought shared his secret rebellion. The tortures. Winston was taken to the dreaded Ministry of Love. Inside, the lights never went out. Day and night blended together, making time itself meaningless. The party began its brutal process of breaking him. Hunger, sleeplessness, beatings, electric shocks. But the worst part wasn't the physical pain. It was the systematic destruction of truth. O'Brien personally led the interrogations, repeating over and over, "Reality is not what you think it is. Reality is whatever the party says it is. If the party says 2 + 2 makes 5, then it is 5. At first Winston resisted. No, 2 + 2 is 4. But as the torture grew harsher, his mind began to falter. The pain tore down his strength and blurred the line between truth and lies. Room 101, the most terrifying place in the Ministry of Love, was Room 101. O'Brien explained, "Everyone has something they cannot face. In Room 101, you will encounter your worst fear." For Winston, that fear was rats. When O'Brien brought out a cage filled with hungry rats, Winston's terror overwhelmed him. He screamed desperately, "Don't do it to me, do it to Julia. Not me, Julia." That single cry was the breaking point. In that moment, Winston betrayed the one person he truly loved. Fear had crushed love, and the party had achieved its ultimate goal, to sever the deepest human bond, surrender. When the torture was over, Winston was no longer the same man. The seed of rebellion inside him had been destroyed. His mind no longer fought against the party. Instead, it obeyed. Doublethink had taken root completely. Now, when he looked at the giant face of Big Brother, he no longer felt anger. Instead, he felt a strange warmth, almost love. In the final lines of the story, Winston's lips formed the chilling words, "He loved Big Brother." This moment marked the complete surrender of his spirit. The party had not only controlled his actions, but conquered his very soul. 1984 Summary, Part 7, Themes and Messages. George Orwell's 1984 is not just a dystopian novel, it is a profound manifesto about humanity's struggle for freedom, truth, and individuality. Throughout the story, every character, event, and symbol reflects not only the political climate of Orwell's time, but also the challenges of our own world today. 1. Surveillance and control. One of the most powerful themes of the novel is constant surveillance and the complete erasure of privacy. Telescreens and the thought police don't just monitor people's actions, they invade their minds, ensuring obedience through fear and suspicion. Message: true freedom is not just physical independence, but the ability to think freely. 2. The manipulation of truth and doublethink. The party's most dangerous weapon is not simply censorship, but the manipulation of reality itself. History is rewritten daily, records are altered, and facts vanish into nothingness. If the party declares that 2 + 2 = 5, then it must be accepted as truth. Message: Reality is not defined by documents or numbers, but by the courage to remember and recognize the truth. 3. Individual freedom and rebellion. At the heart of the story is Winston's inner rebellion. His greatest fight is not with weapons, but with memory, thought, and honesty. His love for Julia becomes his way of resisting the party, a secret space where he can still feel human. But the party fears love, friendship, and loyalty, because such bonds give people strength to resist. That is why it seeks to destroy them. Message: the greatest freedom is staying loyal to the truth within your heart. 4. Love and betrayal. The relationship between Winston and Julia is both a symbol of hope and a tragic warning. Their love represents freedom, but in Room 101, the party forces Winston to betray Julia by confronting his worst fear, the rats. Overcome by terror, he pleads for the torture to be inflicted on her instead. Message: fear can overpower even love, yet the lesson of love and responsibility never disappears. 5. Death and surrender. At the end, Winston is completely broken. His rebellion is crushed. His thoughts are no longer his own. Doublethink rules his mind. Where once he felt anger toward Big Brother, he now feels only a strange, hollow love. In the novel's haunting final moment, Winston whispers, "He loved Big Brother." This is not just the end of his struggle, it is the death of his spirit, the complete surrender of his freedom and humanity. 6. The place of 1984 in literature. 1984 stands as one of the most influential works in world literature. Orwell's vision of a society where truth is erased and people are trapped under total surveillance has remained painfully relevant. The phrase "Big Brother is watching you" has become a symbol of the modern surveillance state and the dangers of unchecked power. The novel reminds us that even in the darkest times, the fight for truth and freedom is what makes us human. The ending and its impact. 1984 ends with the tragic downfall of Winston Smith. The spark of hope that began with the words "Down with Big Brother" in his secret diary is extinguished by the chilling confession, "He loved Big Brother." Under the party's relentless control, Winston's spirit is finally broken. He is no longer the man who doubted, questioned, and longed for truth. Instead, he has surrendered his will, embracing the lies and loving the very figure who enslaved him. This ending leaves readers with both heartbreak and a profound sense of awareness. It demonstrates how freedom and individuality can be systematically destroyed under totalitarian regimes. The question of freedom and truth. One of the most powerful messages of the novel is that truth itself can be turned into a weapon of power. The party rewrites history, erasing facts and reshaping reality at will. By manipulating memory, it strips people of their freedom. After all, who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past. Orwell wasn't only criticizing the dictatorships of his own time, he was warning us about the dangers of any future system built on lies and absolute control. The value of humanity. Winston's desperate longing for Julia mirrors the little prince's love for his Rose. Both stories remind us that what makes us human is not obedience or power, but love, loyalty, and the truths we hold in our hearts. In 1984, however, these human values are deliberately destroyed. Winston's final surrender shows the terrifying reality of losing one's inner freedom. The place of 1984 in literature. Since its publication in 1949, 1984 has become more than just a novel. It is a warning to humanity. The phrase "Big Brother is watching you" has turned into a global symbol of surveillance and authoritarian control. Even today, decades later, the book remains one of the most quoted works in discussions about technology, censorship, and freedom. Few novels have captured the fragility of truth and the dangers of unchecked power as powerfully as Orwell's masterpiece. An unending story. Though Winston's story ends in defeat, the message of 1984 continues to live on in the hearts of readers. It reminds us of one essential truth: freedom is only understood once it has been lost. With this, 1984 stands as one of the most important works of world literature, echoing across generations as a timeless call to protect truth and human dignity. Subscribe to stay updated with new book summaries.